Imagine setting off alone into the vast open ocean armed with nothing but a rowboat, determination, and a history of defying the odds. This is a story of Angela Madsen, a 59-year-old record-breaking athlete with numerous Guinness World Records and Paralympic medals to her name. Her next incredible challenge was to row solo from California to Hawaii, a journey expected to last 3 grueling months. If successful, Angela would set even more records. She'd be the first paraplegic, first openly gay athlete, and the oldest woman to achieve this feat. With her eyes set firmly on the horizon, she waved a final goodbye to her loved ones, and she never returned. Born in 1960 in Ohio, Angela Madsen was the quintessential tomboy. She loved rifling through National Geographic magazines, and she was a naturally talented athlete. She had her sights set on the Olympics, though. A dream echoed by her classmates who voted her the most likely to make it to the Olympics. But life had other plans for Angela. In high school, her journey took an unexpected turn when she became a mother. Despite her athletic abilities, a much-anticipated volleyball scholarship that she was supposed to get slipped through her fingers. She didn't end up getting the scholarship because the school doubted that she could juggle motherhood, sports, and academics. So that put a pause on her Olympic dreams. Searching for direction and following in her family's footsteps, Angela enlisted in the Marines in 1979. A towering 6'1", Angela excelled at basketball, and she was quickly recruited to the Marine Corps women's team. But fate took a harsh turn one game when she fell and another player fell on top of her. This led to a devastating injury, ruptured discs, a damaged sciatic nerve, which resulted in her having trouble walking. Her basketball dreams were shattered in an instant. And then things got even worse. Her commanding officer denied her request for medical care for her injury, and she also wanted to transfer to a less physical occupation. Angela recalls that time in her memoir and explains that the commanding officer denied the request because she refused his advances. She also ended up assaulting him in one of those moments and was quickly discharged. She got only a fraction of the medical benefits that she needed. And at only 21 years old, Angela found herself navigating civilian life once again. She worked as a mechanic for about 6 years until her injury took its toll. The relentless leg and back pain just became too overwhelming, and it made it impossible for her to continue working. The vibrant athlete, once at home on the basketball court, now faced this reality where sports were no longer a part of her life. And in 1992, things got even worse. A car accident left Angela with a broken leg and ribs. The following year, she underwent spine fusion surgery for that back injury, and it was a procedure that was meant to bring relief, but instead it spiraled into a nightmare. Everything seemed to be going wrong in Angela's life. The surgery was mishandled by student surgeons, and it left her in a worse state than before. A 4-hour operation stretched into over 10 hours, and the aftermath was devastating. Angela could no longer walk. Her life was forever altered. She faced not only constant pain from the botched surgery, but also crushing words from the doctor who called her a waste of life.
This chief of spinal cord injury told me that my physical condition was a waste of human life.
Then, in a stunning betrayal, she came home one day to an eviction notice and her partner, who was gone. She had taken Angela's car, savings, and even stole her disability checks. And in one final shot to the heart, she told Angela, "I didn't sign on to be with someone in a wheelchair." Bankrupt, homeless, and now a paraplegic, Angela had hit rock bottom. Her health issues compounded with a mastectomy after getting breast cancer, and she also had to undergo surgeries for carpal tunnel and ulnar nerve issues. In this seemingly hopeless situation, the once vibrant athlete saw no path back to sports, no glimpse of the life she once knew. On her 34th birthday, Angela was in a very dark place, wishing that she had never been born. But then a shocking incident jolted her life onto a new path. While in San Francisco, she was crossing these train tracks when she got stuck and fell headfirst under the tracks. She was stuck and helpless and couldn't get up and thought she was going to die because a train was coming. Two good Samaritans rushed out and rescued her just in time, but the fall resulted in a mild brain injury. And this terrifying moment actually became a turning point in Angela's life. In the aftermath, she had a profound realization. She discovered a newfound gratitude for life and decided to take control of her own life and future right then and there. She said, "I stopped being a victim and started taking responsibility to retrain and reprogram myself. It doesn't mean that bad things no longer happen to me or that I am not victimized by people or that my life is easy. I just improved my coping skills and took myself to another level." Angela then made a life-altering decision to dive back into the world of competitive sports. She began with the National Veterans Wheelchair Games. The support of the Disabled Veterans Association helped her get a place to live and sponsored her show so she could travel to the games. And she began playing sports again, and she was ecstatic. And it wasn't just a return to sports, it was a triumphant comeback. Angela astounded everyone by taking home 5 gold medals in swimming, wheelchair slalom, and billiards. And she didn't stop there. She played on multiple basketball teams, and then she discovered rowing. That's where Angela found her true calling. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where Angela would once again redefine what's possible. So the type of rowing that Angela was doing was called adaptive rowing. This form of rowing was tailored for individuals with various physical and intellectual impairments, and it was a perfect fit for her. Adaptive rowers, ranging from those with autism to limb amputations, visual impairments, and paraplegia, required special equipment and coaching. But for Angela, it was also a sport in which she could compete on equal footing with able-bodied athletes. Rowing wasn't just a sport for Angela, it became a source of rehabilitation and a return to her love of the outdoors.
I started a program in Long Beach. It's free for people with disabilities to come out and learn how to row. Rowing is a phenomenal sport and a phenomenal recreational and rehabilitative activity.
In 2002, at age 42, she entered the World Rowing Championships, her first international rowing competition, and she brought home a silver medal. For the next 4 years, she remained undefeated. She said, "My Olympic dream became my Paralympic dream." Angela started an adaptive rowing program for people with disabilities and became a U.S. rowing level 3 coach. The California Adaptive Rowing Program was Angela's nonprofit aimed at empowering physically and intellectually challenged individuals. In 2006, Angela's life took a heartwarming turn when she met Deb. Deb was a social worker who brought a young man to Angela's program, and he was adjusting to new life in the wheelchair and was looking for support and guidance on how to do that. It was Angela's approach that captivated Deb. Angela had this patience, and she just refused to see disability as a barrier to dreams and aspirations. The connection between Angela and Deb was instant and profound. They began dating, and just a few months later, they decided to marry. And Deb supported Angela's dreams, but she didn't really fully grasp the allure of Angela's numerous rowing expeditions. But she stood by Angela, supporting her in her dreams and understanding that for Angela, the call of the ocean was not just a challenge, but a part of her identity. In 2007, Angela made a significant shift in her rowing career. She switched from flatwater rowing to ocean rowing. And she described flatwater rowing as graceful and coordinated, where ocean rowing was a different beast. It was erratic, wild, and a true test of your endurance. For Angela, this chaos leveled the playing field with the able-bodied rowers. And in the same year, she raced in the Woodville Atlantic Rowing Race, a 3,000-mile race across the Atlantic Ocean from the Canary Islands to Antigua. She partnered up with the amputee from France, and it was an opportunity for both of them to prove to everyone that people with physical limitations could cross oceans too. Their vessel, aptly named Row of Life, became a symbol of Angela's mission. They finished the race in 67 days. This was Angela's first of many times that she would make it into the Guinness Book of World Records. She became the first woman with a disability to row across the Atlantic. Deb thought that Angela would be done with ocean crossings after this, but little did she know that Angela was just getting started. In 2009, Angela received an extraordinary invitation. A group of 7 ambitious, able-bodied rowers asked Angela to be their skipper for a journey across the Atlantic. It was 3,600 miles from Western Australia to Mauritius. Angela was ecstatic and flattered to be asked, and of course she accepted. The 58-day voyage across the Indian Ocean turned out to be her most difficult row. It was a demanding journey, it was really long, and the weather was absolutely horrible. And on the 3rd day, they faced a heart-stopping moment when the boat was knocked around and flipped over, resulting in damaged oars and the loss of steering. But despite the struggles, they successfully completed the journey. Angela not only set a record as the oldest woman to row across the Indian Ocean at 48 years old, but also along with the fellow rower Helen Taylor, they both became the first women to achieve this feat. Angela's next adventure in 2010 was nothing short of epic, and here's what Deb had to say about that one.
Then 3 other women asked her to row around Great Britain, and I said, absolutely not. And then she did that.
This was a paddle around the British mainland with 3 other women. And they had particularly harsh conditions when they were rowing around Scotland. It was cold, miserable, and the seas were treacherous. But Angela's spirit never wavered. She said the body does amazing things when you push it. The team set many records on this row, one being that Angela became the oldest woman to row around the British mainland. Because gold medals in rowing weren't enough, Angela next dove into the world of track and field. She showcased her skill in shot put and javelin, and once again found herself getting some medals. She was on the podium at the London Games in 2012, and she got a bronze medal for shot put. In June 2013, after 2 years of meticulous planning, Angela embarked on her next adventure, a solo Pacific row from California to Hawaii. But the journey quickly escalated into a battle against nature. Just 80 miles out, 7 days in, she faced gale force 2 winds and towering seas. With the forecast predicting even more ferocious gale force 4 winds for the next 7 days, she was forced to make the tough decision to abandon the trip. A year later, and determined to conquer the Pacific, Angela geared up for another attempt. This time, her wife insisted that she find a partner and not go alone. So Angela teamed up with Tara Remington, a seasoned rower from New Zealand. After 60 days, Angela and Tara completed their epic journey. This feat marked Guinness World Records 7, 8, and 9 for Angela. Now let's just talk about ocean rowing for a minute, because I don't know if y'all understand how crazy it is. Rowing across an ocean isn't just difficult, it's an extreme test of endurance. It's challenging even for the most healthiest and most able-bodied people out there. And for Angela, being a paraplegic actually added layers of complexity to the already difficult task. She faced unique challenges, such as managing sores due to reduced sensation and circulation, which made infections a significant risk. Angela's adaptation to the rowing equipment, like wearing braces to secure her feet and maintain her position, led to additional skin problems and sores. Her back condition meant that she was just in intense pain all the time, pretty much. And she said, ocean rowing is like riding a bull. It's always moving and it's constant and unpredictable. And this was difficult to deal with when she tried to rest in the cabin. She was getting thrown around while trying to sleep. And then there were the things that Mother Nature threw at her. She encountered 360-degree lightning storms. She was bombarded by hundreds of flying fish which would pummel her in the face and body, and then they'd land in the boat, and then she'd have to scoop the fish out of the boat. So she had to spend time and energy removing those flying fish out of the boat. And on top of that, she had to endure waves that just tossed the boat around violently. And then there's navigating in the complete darkness. That was another challenge. She just couldn't even see her hand in front of her face at night. And that brings us to 2020. Angela was bound and determined to do that solo trip from California to Hawaii. Deb revealed the core reason behind this trip and said that the initial reason she did the California to Hawaii row is because she didn't think she could. And then she had to prove to herself that she could do it. Crossing an ocean alone is solitary, painful, extremely difficult thing to do, but Deb said it was never going to be over until the solo row. And she was right, Angela was not done. Eager to have her story told, Angela reached out to documentary filmmaker Soraya Simi. The two hit it off instantly, setting the stage for a film that would capture an extraordinary undertaking. Soraya said, "Angela is hands down the most inspiring and influential human being I've ever met. She radiates positivity, she radiates warmth. I thought she was going to be this Navy SEAL, G.I. Jane type character, and she's just a big teddy bear. So funny, so full of life, and very resilient." Angela wasn't just taking another solo journey though, she was about to set 3 more groundbreaking records. The first paraplegic rower, the first openly gay athlete, and at 60, the oldest woman to complete this route. She estimated that the trip would take her about 100 days. Around midnight on April 23, 2020, Angela prepared to embark on her journey. She climbed into her boat and secured herself into the seat. She adjusted her life jacket and a little small pride flag that she had fluttering on the boat and got as comfortable as she could before she set off alone into the ocean. As Angela rowed away into the night, leaving the safety of shore behind her, she wasn't gripped by fear or nerves. Her life had been a series of formidable challenges, and rowing was just one more arena where she truly excelled. She was back in the place she loved, where she felt whole. She said, "Whatever my purpose in this life is, my differently abled, physically challenged, broken down, beaten up body seems to be the vehicle required for me to achieve it. If I could go back and change things, I would not." Throughout her voyage, Angela was in constant contact with Deb through text and satellite phone messages. But by day 47, the rough sea tested her limits. She was knocked off her seat a couple of times. She described it very vividly. She said there were large waves you can hear coming roaring towards your boat and then crash into you with enormous force. And there was pain. There was always pain for Angela, but even more so now after rowing for almost 2 months. Her palms were raw and she had sores on her body. Each splash of salt water seared her sores, but Angela persevered. Pain was not unfamiliar to her, and it certainly wasn't going to stop her now. As June unfolded, Angela faced increasingly treacherous conditions at sea. Day after day, she battled against 10-foot waves and 25-knot winds. And to add to the challenge, there was an early season tropical cyclone which started in the south and was heading towards her. Then a critical issue arose on her boat. Angela found a problem with the hardware for the parachute anchor, essential for stabilizing the boat in heavy seas. Knowing the urgency, especially with the cyclone looming, Angela realized that she needed to fix it, which meant tethering herself to the boat and entering the water. She posted on June 20th, "Tomorrow is a swim day." And the following day, all communication from Angela ceased. Deb was increasingly worried, and she noticed that the tracker on the boat, it looked like the boat was drifting with the currents and not being actively rowed. Deb spent a sleepless night at the home they shared, holding out hope that Angela would respond to her many messages and calls. By Monday, with still no word from Angela, the Coast Guard was called. As the early evening sky took on a serene golden hue, a plane was dispatched and headed towards Angela's location. Flying low, it approached her last known position, and they saw a tiny speck in the vast ocean below. As they got closer, Angela's boat bobbed quietly. Still tethered to the boat was Angela's lifeless body floating in the water. A German cargo ship was nearby and retrieved her body, but her boat remained at sea. Other than some scrapes and bruises on her lower right leg, she was unharmed. An autopsy later revealed the cause of her death was drowning. Deb grappled with the unanswered questions about those final moments. She speculated that Angela, who was experienced and strong and normally able to get back into her boat due to her crazy upper body strength, might have been caught in the tether, or perhaps she didn't notice the onset of hypothermia due to her paralysis. In the end, Deb said that she may never know what happened, unless Angela, who was keeping a video diary, turned on one of her cameras. Deb later reflected on her conversations with Angela and said, "Every time I talked to her, she was so delighted to be out in the middle of the ocean, which I never understood. It's hard not to be supportive when that just makes somebody so happy." The joy Angela found in the open ocean was incomprehensible to many, yet it was her sanctuary, her place of pure happiness.
She would go do things because she had to prove to herself she could. That's why she had to row solo. It didn't mean she wasn't afraid. You know, she was afraid of things too, but you can't just live afraid. You have to push those envelopes.
Deb hired someone to look for the missing boat, but by late July, the GPS signal on Row of Life went dark. Complicating the search, a hurricane swept across the area, blowing the boat out of the area and likely damaging it. As weeks passed, hope of finding the boat dimmed. 2 weeks later, Deb made the difficult decision to call off the search. 16 months later, there was a surprising discovery. Angela's boat washed ashore on the Marshall Islands, 2,300 miles away from where it was last seen. The boat potentially held video footage of Angela's last moments at sea, but the boat had been pilfered and stripped of most of its items. The rigging, life jackets, video footage, cameras, they were nowhere to be found. Soraya and Deb held on to a flicker of hope. They both agreed that the film should be completed if by some miracle the dozens of hours of footage that Angela took on the voyage can be salvaged. As of now, the documentary hasn't been completed, but I did see that earlier this summer, Soraya was still working on it. So maybe it will come out one day. Angela's story goes beyond the records she set and the extreme challenges she overcame. It's a story of a woman who showed us that limitations are frontiers to be challenged, not boundaries to confine us. She pushed the boundaries of what seemed possible, and in doing so, inspired countless others.
Seen for my ability rather than my disability, or they don't see the wheelchair at all. They see me being able to navigate them and get them across faster and first, and that's amazing. So it's like changing the way the world views mobility impairments, you know, like one ocean crossing at a time.